Hello, first grade. Today we're going to talk about verbs. So we already know that verbs are words that show action. Verbs are words that show action, like jumping and sleeping and eating and jogging and running. Those are all action words that helps us with our parts of speech. So today we're going to talk about verb tenses. Verb tenses tells us when an action is taking place. So there are three main verb tenses that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the present, we're going to talk about the past, and we're going to talk about the future. Those are three main verb tenses that we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to come to our slide here and I'm going to open it so that we can see. Oh, there we go. So we said verb tenses tells us when an action is taking place. So that has a lot to do with time. So the first one that we're going to talk about today, friends, is the present. The first tense we're going to talk about is present. Present talks about an action that is happening right now. An action that is happening right now. So I'm going to do an action and you're going to do it with me. I clap. It's something that I just did right now. Do it with me. I clap. I jump. It's something that I'm doing right now. It's happening as we talk about. Sometimes for singular nouns and pronouns, you add an S to them. But for some verbs, you're going to add an S to them because it shows that it's happening right now. Like she, if you're talking about someone else, you're talking about she runs. That is something she is doing right now. Or he walks. That is something that he's doing. It's an ongoing action that he's doing right then and there. So when we talk about the past, that means it's something that already happened. It's an action that already took place. And sometimes in the past, there are not a lot of verbs that follow the rules. It's called irregular verbs. And we're going to talk about that as well later on down the line. But right now, I want you to think about past. So past is something, is an action that already took place. Like when we clapped in the present, when we already did it. Now we say, I clapped. You add an ed to the end of that base word, clapped, and you make it clapped. That means it already happened. Jump becomes jumped, something because we already did it. I jumped. You add an ed to it to show that it already happened. So what would we notice about the verbs? They changed. At first, it was just clap and jump. But because we already did, the action already happened, we added an ed to it and the verbs changed. It became clapped and jumped. And the last verb tense we're going to talk about today, friends, is future. Future tense talks about an action that is going to happen. And you always add the word will in front of the base verb. For example, I will clap, something that is going to happen. And I will jump. We talked about helping verbs last week. Will is helping that verb out. So I will clap and I will jump. We're going to practice that. We're going to look at some examples and we're going to practice. So for present tense, if I have walk, what will past tense be? That's right. You'll add an ed to walk because talking about something you already did, an action that already took place, and it becomes I walked. So what will future tense be? That's right. You add a will to it. I will walk. That means something that is going to happen. What about I smile? What would a past tense be for I smile? Something that you already done. I smiled. Good job. You add an ed to that base word smile to show that something already happened. You already smiled. And what about future tense? I will smile. Something that is going to happen. I will smile for picture day. And let's look at this one. I look. What would it be for past tense? I looked at an ed. And for future tense, I will look. So we're going to practice, and I want you to think about what we notice happening to the verbs. What did you notice happen to the verbs? Yes, that's right. We added an ed to the past tense, Yes, we wrote will before the verb to show its future tense. So in order for us to show that future tense, we needed a helping verb to help us with that. We use different tenses of verbs depending on when the action takes place. And we use our three main verb tenses, which is past, present, and future. For example, they will run. They run. They ran. We're going to take a jump into this time machine and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. So present tense stays the same, or you add an S or ES. So we walk. Notice that the word stays the same. He laughs. When you're using pronouns and talking about another person, he is the pronoun and laughs is the verb. He laughs. You add an S to it because you're talking about someone else. She wishes, or you add an ES as well. But in other words, it stays the same. Future tense, you add the word will before the verb. Will crawl. Present tense is mix. Will mix. Ooh, chase. That's right, will chase. And we know that our last one, past tense, you always add an ED. If my word is jump, my base word is jump, then it becomes jumped. You add an ED to that word. If my word is clean, then you add an ED to clean and it becomes cleaned. My word is guess. You add an ED to it and it becomes guessed. But what about verbs that are irregular? My word is sit. She sat. Does it make sense to say sitted? No, you say sat. That shows past. Some verbs are irregular, but instead of adding the ed, you have to change the whole word. For example, go, you will say went. I wouldn't say gold, I would say went. He went to the store already. That shows that's something that he already did. Or I went to the store last night. That's something that I did already, something that already happened, an action that already took place. What about eat? Would I say I eated? No, I will say I ate. It shows past tense. That is called, some verbs are irregular. That's called a irregular verb. What about run? Oh, ran. She ran. Good job. Some verbs change completely in the past tense and don't follow any of the rules. And we discovered what we call them. We call them irregular verbs. We call them irregular past tense verbs. So irregular verbs, you use the present tense verb, which is eat, and it becomes ate. So friends, I'm going to pause right there, but you can check out on the calendar that you have a worksheet, and your worksheet looks just like this. And it has all the words here listed for you. And it shows you irregular past tense verbs, and it also shows you past, present tense, and future. These are examples that can help you complete the worksheet at the bottom that's under this worksheet. So you can practice with that, friends, and I would love to see how you do well with this. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys soon.